Thank you so much for joining me. I'm L'Oreal Lance, your Member Services and Business Development Director, and I want to thank you for joining the Midwest Regional Town Hall. We've been working our way through all of the regions, and we're so excited to hear from you, our members. Before we get started, I'll allow my colleagues from both the board and the staff to introduce themselves, starting with our board president, Barb Klein.
Good morning. It's great to be with everyone this morning from beautiful South Dakota. Hope everyone is doing well and looking forward to hear what's going on in your state and your locations. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Barb and Randy.
Unmute yourself, Randy.
You seldom tell me that, Barb.
I know.
Good morning. My name is Randy Zobrist. I'm Executive Director, Riverbend Transit, based in Davenport, Iowa, rural system, and Midwest rep on the CTAA board. Good to see everybody.
And back over at CTAA Worldwide Headquarters.
Oh, hi, I'm Taylor Clockey. I work with Scott and L'Oreal on our membership and communications, good stuff.
Hey everybody, Scott, the Executive Director. Great to see everyone and appreciate you taking some time to kind of engage with us here and looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, thank you. So just quickly here, we're so happy to see everyone with their cameras on and already starting to participate. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat box, or also feel free to kind of raise your hand and we'll call on you. We would love to hear from you directly. Now let's move into membership. As you hopefully have heard, our membership awards nominations are open. The nominations will close on September 6th, and hopefully you know that we will be having our expo in November in Richmond, which is when the award winners will be revealed. So please be sure to nominate yourself or a peer for one of the many industry-specific awards. Also, our Emerging Leaders Academy applications are open. Those will close on September 1st. So September will be a busy month for applications. For the Emerging Leaders Academy, we are hoping that you will send your best and brightest future leaders at your organizations and your systems. This year, it'll be a 9-month intensive program that includes dedicated mentorship, a capstone project, and much, much more. Every organization should be thinking about their succession planning, and we think our Emerging Leaders Academy is a great place to start. The buyer's guide, we know that there have been plenty of buyer's guides in CTAA history. This may be one of the first ones that will be fully digital. So that will be coming out in our member newsletter, which should be going out this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So please be on the lookout for hopefully what will be a one-stop shop for all of your procurement needs. And this summer, we will be working on a member profile. So please be on the lookout for information for a survey. We'll be getting surveys out to you probably in late July. So we need all of the details from you to put together a member profile. So that way you can see how you stack up against your peers when it comes to like size and funding. We'll be having that report available for review during our expo in November as well. All right, Taylor. And finally, some fun membership events. We are so excited to finally get to see everyone in person. Here at CTAA, we started our phase back into the office approach this week. This is the first time Taylor and Scott have sat next to one another since last March. And so we're so excited to see you hopefully at 2 events this year that will be in person. We have our Small Urban Network Conference that will be held in Missoula, Montana. So everyone who is Sun or has large rural systems, we hope to see you there. This will be a retreat-like setting over August 11th through the 13th. Please register and book your hotel rooms today. And of course, we are so excited that our expo registration is open. We haven't seen everyone since 2019 in Palm Springs. So please be sure to register for Expo. All of the intensives are up there for you to peruse, and the event will be held November 7th through 11th. And now I'll turn it over to Scott, who will share with you how your agencies can get involved in federally funded grants via CTAA.
Thanks, L'Oreal. And before I start, I should mention that our host for the Sun Conference is on camera here, Corey with Mountain Line up in Montana. And again, if you operate a fixed route operation, if you're a small urban, this is a really good conference for you. Corey, give us a sense of, you've been to past Suns. What kept you coming back to the conference?
It's a great question. It is the only conference where I really feel like I have peers to talk to, and it's a low-key setting. It really provides us a lot of opportunity to really see what's going on with other systems and ask questions and really network. That's my favorite one of all the conferences I attend. So,
thank you. That's great to hear. That's what we're going for, is kind of a place just for systems that size, which usually have to either extrapolate what rurals are doing or what big urbans are doing and figure out. So I'm glad to hear you say that. We're certainly excited about it. I've never seen staff book travel so far in advance of a trip before, so that tells you a lot too. On the grant side, with the slide, I just wanted to make sure that each of you are paying attention. We've got a number of ongoing TA centers, one on mobility management, another one on applied technology, that are actively looking to find places to send grant funds to test new theories. A grant we have through HHS, we've got 3 communities right now that are doing on-demand planning, specifically with an emphasis on older adults and people with disabilities. The mobility management announced a series of grants opportunities earlier this week. FTA broadcast that widely. And then Andrew, our lead on the applied technology team, is always looking for places to do strike teams where we can assist members in any urban or rural operation or tribal operation with electrification, with the right technology to do on-demand services, all sorts of that kind of directly applied technology. And I think as we emerge out of the pandemic and into what's going to be a different kind of new normal for all forms of public transportation, these grants, we're making sure that they're going to capture what's really happening, not pre-pandemic practices, but what's happening now. So just keep your eyes peeled on all that. Let us know if we can, if you want any assistance, but really want to encourage you to engage with those. Most of those grants are grants that I think all of our members in all transit systems could use. Any questions on any of that? All right, well, let's hit the advocacy front.
On your grants.
Yeah.
Is there a listing on your website for that, or you have to have a special handshake in order to find that information?
No special handshakes. Those are out during the pandemic, Tuck. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, no, they're listed in all of our emails that we send out to members,
Okay.
both the fast mail and the member. But I think you raise a really good idea for us to put them in one easy to spot place on the website and kind of string them together. So that's an excellent recommendation that we'll put together.
Now, are any of these the sort of things? Okay, we got a lot of little agencies. Are any of these grants that, like a state association, why would I ask that, might apply for on behalf of several of its folks, or are these all grants direct to providers?
No, potentially. I think that's a great idea. I mean, the NCAT, some of the grants have been to do statewide technical and technology assessments. That'd be perfect to, as an example. The first year, Andrew somehow ended up with almost almost, Corey, every M state. I think we did Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm K.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't work.
I'm aware of that. But yeah, I think there'd be some opportunities, Tuck, to work
Okay.
at that with you. Yeah,
I'll look at the list. Thanks.
cool. So on the advocacy front, couple things. One, the Senate is having a hearing Tuesday at 2:30 Eastern on rural transit. Our own Barb Klein and another CTA board member, Kendra McGeady from Oklahoma, will both be testifying on kind of key issues for rural public transit with an eye towards the reauthorization of the FAST Act. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee is going to mark up its bill on the 9th and 10th of next week. If you ever want to see kind of visually over Zoom what a root canal looks like, I would encourage you to watch the proceedings, and you can see, Randy earlier had an issue with not taking himself off mute. Well, every member of Congress can't do that, or they never put themselves on mute. So you get to hear all sorts of interesting dialogue in the middle of the markup. And you can watch the Congressman DeFazio, who's trying to get everything done. You can kind of watch his temperature just rise until his head explodes. That's next Wednesday and Thursday, but it's critical. So what they're going to be doing is laying down the first set of real policy about the next 5 years of investment in all forms of surface transportation. And they're using HR 2, which passed the entire House last year, as kind of the jumping off point. Some key things to look for that we have been certainly actively advocating around. One, HR 2, unfortunately, moved the limits to needing a CDL for a driver from 16 passengers down to 8. That would be disastrous for our members who are already having major issues trying to find drivers, the expense of CDLs, the time-consuming nature of that. Trust me when I tell you, we have been beating the bushes on the House side to say, don't do this. And that's going to be one of the first things I look for in the actual language. Interesting note, the reason that's there is because in New York State, a limousine accident that tragically killed 20 people in a single limousine in 2018, this was the response. And we've been reminding many members of Congress, including a lot in the New York delegation, that if you feel the need to make changes to CDLs for limousine drivers, don't do that in a way that brings in every public transit system in the country, every NEMT operator. And it turns out when you read and get into the details of that tragic accident, the driver of the limousine had a CDL. So as is often in Washington, I'm not even really sure what they're attempting to accomplish with that other than create a nightmare for a lot of other agencies. So we're going to be looking at that. Obviously, the funding levels, we've been assured that we're going to see consistent growth in the key formula programs that you're interested in, 5307, 5310, 5311. On the bus and bus capital front, we are attempting to encourage the Democrats to not be so dogmatic about battery electric buses and to be a little more lenient, which would allow more smaller agencies to pursue battery electric buses. I've gotten word from the right people on the committee, and it always worries me when they say this to me, but they said, I can't tell you what's going to be in there, Scott, but I can tell you that I think you're going to like it. We've all been in that position before when someone says that to us, and we know it doesn't always end up exactly as we'd like, but I think that's encouraging. There's some good regulatory reform that we expect.
Before you move on, Scott, can I
Go ahead.
talk? When Senator Moran was questioning the new nominee for the FTA,
Yep.
and he even reported about this in his newsletter, he said he questioned her about the FTA favoring grants for more costly, less effective electric public transit vehicles over other low emission vehicles using alternative fuel sources, such as conventional and renewable natural gas, which provides similar environmental benefits at a much lower cost. And then he goes on and talks about the whole. So is there, I mean, what's going on there? I mean, in terms of the.
Yeah,
I have some agencies like Lawrence and Topeka's buying some electric.
Yep.
But you get in Western Kansas, there's no charging stations, so we're not going to have electric vehicles.
That's the issue. And so the name of the program is the Low and No Emission Competitive Bus and Bus Facilities Capital Program. 99% of those funds in the 5 years we've had this program have gone to battery electrics. The other 1% has gone to hydrogen fuel cell. And that really highlights the partisan divide that we're looking at, Tuck. You've got on the Democratic side a real push towards green, the Green New Deal, and anything that comes up against that, the Republicans push back pretty hard. We made a recommendation 4 years ago that we should policy-wise be in the business of mandating emissions reductions on the part of all transit systems and allow each transit system to figure out the most effective way to do that in their communities. I still think that's the best answer, but they didn't take us up on that. I think the electric bus manufacturers have done an amazingly good job of cornering the market on concepts of low emission and no emission. And with the Congress currently in the hands of the Dems and with the Biden administration, we kind of transitioned into thinking we've got to, if battery electric is the way they're going to go, then we got to get a foothold so that it doesn't all just go to the large metros, and that mid-sized smaller cities and rurals can get into that program. But there's stipulations built into the competitive piece that make it really hard. Like they want a system to often guarantee that they're going to be fully electric by 2030 was one. And we've asked them to water that down for smaller agencies to allow them in so they can actually compete. We've asked them to set aside rural funds so that rurals are competing with rurals for battery electrics where it makes sense and not competing with Chicago and LA and Seattle. I'd say the same of small urban. That's what we're looking at. But
well, doesn't CNG fit into this lower emission?
It should. It
No.
doesn't. And the rationale for that from FTA has been that the low and no emission program in the bus and bus facilities is for emerging and new technologies, and CNG is an old technology. Now, that's a semantic argument to me, and you're smiling because you get it just like I do. But we are seeing, and we're about to issue a report on a lot of smaller manufacturers that are going to be coming to the marketplace with body on chassis and other smaller rural types of vehicles that are going to be battery electric. They're moving in that direction. And I just want to be able to have our members tap the same federal funds as they have for 40-foot buses in the battery electric space. Other issues to look at, again, some good positives on deregulation or let's call it right sizing some regs. You'll see, and we're going to keep our eyes on that piece of it as well. So big doings. Now, other stuff that's kind of on the agenda, the administration has a massive infrastructure bill, 110 billion for public transit. It's something that we're obviously following. I have felt like CTA's resources have been best deployed over the last 45 days or so on the reauthorization. That if we can get a successful reauthorization this summer and lock in those kinds of funding levels, if the infrastructure stuff lands, wonderful, it's a bonus. But that's so politically charged and being debated at levels above us, frankly, that we don't have a lot of influence there. So our decision is to work on with the folks we know on the reauthorization and try to get that done now before the looming 2022 election cycle makes it impossible to get this bill done. The other two things I want to point to, and then I'll open up the floor. One is this month you're going to see we're partnering with AASHTO on a 7-state analysis of exactly what was provided to small urban, rural, and tribal transit when it comes to the various COVID stimulus funds. How much these 7 states have expended in CARES, CRISA, and the rescue plan, when their plans are to finalize and spend down all of the funds, how much was operating versus how much is capital. We're doing this because there's a lot of heat in Congress coming from the Republicans about unspent money, particularly CARES Act funds, but the others as well in the transit space. Our pushback has been rural got 5% and small urban got 5% and tribal got less than 1%. So even if every dollar of rural money had been spent, you'd still be fighting over the other 95. And we're trying to communicate to Congress that just because it hasn't been spent immediately in rural areas does not mean it's not important and won't all be used given the timeframes they've provided. And it will be used to augment local share. In some cases, states have reduced their investment in public transit because of the pandemic. It'll be used for that. So that's one. The other piece that we're going to be putting out at the end of the month is a white paper that documents all of what public transit has done in all of its sizes to increase access to the vaccine. And we think these two reports, the value of the funds and the full disclosure of the full plans on the part of many states, and then just what transit has done in an essential role to get people access to the vaccine, that's gonna be our response to, hey, so much money was given to public transit, what'd you do with it? So that's another issue that we're addressing. And please, I'll open up the floor now. I'd be eager to hear any thoughts on the part of the members here on kind of what we're up to.
What are the 7 states?
Michigan, Wyoming, Washington, Texas, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire. And we were trying to get a geographic spread, kind of a size spread, some more rural, some more urban, that kind of thing. It's good data that's coming back. In those 7 states now, we can say this is the percentage of CARES Act funds that have been obligated. This is the percent that's been spent. We can do the same with the CRISA funds. It's all zeros on the rescue plan funds, so it's an easy answer on those. But then they also provided exactly when they expect to have all those funds fully expended And they talked about some kind of ways in which they see at the state level a lot of these funds being used, operating largely, some states saying, here's what we set aside for capital, and then an emphasis really on, for the smaller agencies, helping out with local share and dealing with local economies that have suffered greatly during the pandemic and aren't going to just bounce back immediately from an economic standpoint.
Scott, I have a question. What does your cloudy crystal ball kind of give you for dates here in the near future, everything from the potential reauthorization, infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera? Do you have anything of any kind of best guesstimate what we're looking at? Are we looking at summer, fall next year? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the current FAST Act expires September 30. That's a decent window. If they can't get this done by then, you're then, 13 months from the 22 elections. And a lot of indications in DC are that there's going to be further change in Congress in that election cycle. And I don't think then you're going to get much traction on this bill. So from a reauthorization perspective, in fact, we signed on to a letter that went to Senator Schumer this morning that basically said, you guys need to get this done and done this summer. And because I think there's a window that's open right now to get this done, and it's not going to be open very long. On the infrastructure piece, I think that I think we got another about 2 months. If we get to the end of July and they haven't come to any agreement and they haven't satisfied Senators Manchin and certainly Senator Tester and some of the kind of moderate Democrats, then it's not going to go, because if they want to use budget reconciliation, and that's a tactic that basically would be the administration saying, we're going to try to get our infrastructure package done without a single Republican voting for it. Okay? That's the way they get past the filibuster. If they're going to do that, it's going to happen pretty quickly. I'm hopeful that we can get some sort of negotiated compromise, but compromise is not a very popular word in this town right now. So we'll see. But those two things, I think they're on that kind of time frame. That'd be my guess right now. But my crystal ball is often pretty cloudy, Randy.
And if infrastructure does not meet a compromise or does not come to fruition, it's probably dead on arrival then, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if they can't get it done before the focus begins on the 22 election cycle, you're going to get the Republicans going, why do we want to give the Democrats a win on something that's relatively, now again, nothing is unanimous in this country anymore, but you'll get 60-65% of American public saying we need to invest in infrastructure. That's an astounding number. I mean, that's an overwhelming majority in modern America. Why are they going to want to give the Republicans a win there? And then on the compromise piece, why are the Dems going to want, you get into that political calculus, and they may already be there, but, and then there's other issues. So when I got a chance to talk to the administration about the infrastructure, I'm a very practical person, and I had two questions. One, okay, 110 billion. What's the formula? Like, how are you going to get this money out to people? And what's the guidance going to look like on it? And to both those questions we haven't even thought about that. So that tells you something too. It's a talking point right now. I don't know that they've gotten to the details of like how much would go to rural and small urban, how much would be, it's all capital, but what would you need to do to apply for it? Is it formula funds? Is it competitive fund? There's not a lot of specificity.
Got it.
And are the earmarks tied up with the infrastructure bill? If
Not
there's
with
no
the-
infrastructure, there's no earmarks?
Not yet. The earmarks, we will see them in the House bill for reauthorization. Say
Okay.
there's going to be earmarks there, and then we'll see them start to arrive, Tuck, in the annual appropes processes. That's where we're going to see them right now.
So what do we do to move the reauthorization bill along? I mean, I had one of my Congress people is the vice chair of the infrastructure committee. So we've got some input to her, and I've had conversations with her already. I don't know whether the other three folks will ever vote for anything the Democrats propose in the House.
Yeah.
And I've got a real trumper over on the Senate side. Marshall is probably a lost cause.
Yep.
And Moran would probably vote for stuff, but he's running for re-election next year, and he's trying to keep his Trump endorsements. So I don't know whether you actually get a vote out of him, but I'm
Right.
sure that he'd do things behind the scenes. So other than the fact that I'm a little, my elected officials are a lost cause to all of this, what can we do?
So that's a really good question. So the House is going to come out with something, and they're going to mark it up, and they're going to fast track it. So we'll have that. The Senate EPW committee, in a very bipartisan fashion, has already passed the highway title. It's the banking committee and its inability to do the transit title that is a concern. So I think particularly with Senator Moran, communicating that the Kansas Public Transit Association thinks it's imperative to get a bill done this summer while this window is open, rather than engaging in now a number of extensions over a period of time, that you're in favor of that. And that, kind of asking them, what do we need to do to keep this thing moving? That, the Dems, I think, will want to do it, led by Senator Brown in Ohio. Senator Toomey, the Republican lead on the banking committee, not so much. They're going to want a demagogue, and they already have, as you saw if you watched the nomination hearings, about $70 billion in COVID stimulus funds going to public transit being way too much. And what are you all doing with all that money? Others? Well, I'll just tell you to keep your eyes on our site. We'll be updating regularly. Our analysis will get out right away of the House bill with the wins and losses in it. Once they go to a further markup, for instance, if I don't see the CDL thing fixed in this bill, we're going to work on a bipartisan group to put together an amendment to get it out. We feel that strongly about it. And I mean, I've heard that from our membership. So, we've got all that at play right now, but it's a good time to kind of keep up to date as beginning next week and for the next 2 months, there's going to be a lot of action here.
Thank you, Scott. And now just a quick note on training before we open up the floor for discussion from both regions. I wanted to remind everyone that we have a number of trainings that are now online in our online training center. There's also quite a few free trainings in that online training center, from de-escalation to trauma-informed driving. So please be sure to check that out. Additionally, seats are filling up for our second FIT conference that will be held June 23rd and 24th. I happen to know that there's only 2 seats left in our Certified Community Transit Supervisor course. So if there is someone in your agency who should be taking that course, please do have them registered. The rest of the courses have less than a handful of seats left as well. So time is of the essence to get registered. Again, that event will be held on June 23rd and 24th. And now I will turn it over to Barb and Randy to further discuss our Region 7 and 8 update.
Barb, you first.
Yes, well, I had to unmute myself, Randy. So I see we have quite a few of our Region 8 folks here today, and I just am wondering what you guys have to offer, what questions you might have. We're not going to get an opportunity to visit with Scott in particular probably until September. So if you guys have questions, this is a great platform to do that.
I will definitely be, by the way, at the conference in Missoula in August. So if you go there, you'll get a lot of CTA staff there if need be.
Right. If not, I mean, I can tell you what we're doing in the western side of South Dakota, which is very similar to those of you in the more rural areas. We continue to operate just as we did pre-COVID. And I will tell you that our numbers are really, really doing well. And in fact, in some communities, the numbers are beginning to surpass 2019 levels. The one big issue that we have, of course, is finding drivers in particular, dispatchers, finding any employees that can pass a drug screen and a criminal background check are kind of a challenge for us. And I'll tell you, never in my 31 years did we have this much problem with, well, I just thought, if I had a couple puffs to relax before I came in for the interview, I didn't know it was going to affect my drug screen. So South Dakota is one of those states that has moved forward with medical marijuana. That I think comes into play July 1st. It's going to be very interesting for us. And I think for us, it will be a municipally run dispensary, which I don't know how that works in other states as well. But I think for that, education is really going to be key for folks. I mean, just because your state made it legal doesn't mean that you can pass a drug screen, doesn't mean that you can pass your CDL. So I think it's going to be really important that we begin that education process in particular here. We've got lots of little communities that are back on board with, can we move forward with our transportation this year? We put 3 communities on hold last year. Just because there was no point in starting something that we really couldn't get a good handle on how a pilot was going to look. So I know that we have lots of expertise in the CTAA staff. We've hired some new folks that you'll get to see in Richmond at Expo. Some new areas of expertise, I think, that you'll be very pleased with. And we hope everybody is willing and able to join us for the rodeo in Richmond. I know my folks here are already ramping up for competition in Fargo. So, Randy, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, well, thanks. We are the 4-county regional system on the east coast of Iowa, so we're right on the Mississippi River. We're halfway between Chicago and Des Moines. We've seen, we're probably at about 80% pre-COVID. Our counties are still way down. We still have a lot of senior congregate centers that have not opened up. Our workshops are opening up in the urban area of Davenport, Bettendorf, still in the outlying areas. They're still slowly bringing people in. Other regional systems in Iowa are anywhere from 50% to about 65%. So they're seeing their growth coming back up also. The one thing I would encourage folks to think about is not knowing what's going to happen with infrastructure, not knowing what's going to be happening with reauthorization, I am going to go ahead and start making plans for a facility expansion, and do my best to have it shovel ready by the time, hopefully, these grants come about, so that we're better poised for applying for grant applications for capital projects. And I would encourage anybody that would be able to get the A&E, out of the way and ready to go, that it will be more helpful and more competitive if it comes to capital projects. As far as COVID, we have relaxed everything in our facility, our admin facilities, just following the FTA guidelines on our vehicles. We've never had any real pushback on that. And I'm looking forward to the FTA probably relaxing that, I hope, in the next month or so, as the vaccinations climb and the positivity rates go down. And our riders and our drivers certainly would like to see that happen too. But yeah, we're more than pleased with the slow growth that we're seeing. So we're hanging in there for a pretty good year, I think.
Hey, Randy, can you speak and maybe start a dialogue here with everybody? Are you getting any backlash from the mask mandate? Is anybody here, getting that kind of negative feedback, or is it just kind of weariness with it?
For us, it's more weariness. We actually started the mandate back in end of March, 1st of April. So our folks have already been through it for a whole year. And my coaching to our drivers and our staff is just hang in there. We're seeing, good things on the horizon as far as the reduction of positivity. So just let everybody know that we're looking forward to this relaxing here sooner than later.
Anybody else having issues with that?
That was, excuse me. Dale, go ahead.
That's the same thing we're getting back from our drivers, is the pushback from the drivers. We've only had 2 passengers that we have had the police escort off the vehicle because they seem to have this, if you don't want to do it, too bad, and they come on there. In fact, one of them spit at an officer that he got taken away pretty quickly. So yeah, as far as the drivers, yeah, they're a little frustrated that this is still going on, especially with our positivity rate down to 2% now.
Yeah. I mean, Dale, they didn't have one this week, but the previous 2 weeks, and I apologize for this alphabet soup, but it was CDC, TSA, DOT, and I do agree with Randy that I think we're going to see them push forward from September 13th, which is the current deadline that they're working on with the mask mandate. The challenge that they have, that I'm sure you're all seeing, is like how to figure out like who is and who isn't vaccinated. And no one wants to discuss that, but I can tell that causes them all sorts of issues. I'll tell you, I've also been raising the social distancing piece, because for so many of our members, that 6-foot social distance means you can't fill your vehicles. And so I'm seeing people at 80, 85%. That's about as good as you can do if you're going to try to keep everybody 6 feet apart. And some states are now reducing that. And I'd like to see that dealt with kind of from FTA unilaterally rather than every state, or let every state, we can't have the mask be a federal mandate and then the social distancing be, well, whatever any locality wants to do. It just doesn't seem like there's any consistency there. I know expecting consistency from the feds is foolish, but that's I think an important issue. And then the other one I wanted to throw out to all the members here is, are any of you, what are you experiencing with your workforce getting vaccinated? The EEOC has ruled that you can make vaccination a condition of employment. I'm not recommending that. I'm just telling you that's out there. And FTA reported to me about 3 weeks ago that they felt like 19% of their grantees had moved to mandate vaccination on the part of all of their workforce. Anybody, what are you guys seeing on that issue?
Scott, we've got, I think 84 employees right now. I need 14 more. So that, yeah, I'm really sensitive to that CDL issue that they're talking about. But we're at 65%. It is not mandatory. And we have had zero, I say zero illnesses since the beginning of COVID, either in the facility or transportation related. So ours, we've either been lucky or not sure, but it's worked out well for us.
That's good. Knock on wood. Anybody else care to share?
We're at about 98%. We only have 2 employees that are not vaccinated, one for religious reasons and one just because they've never ever gotten a vaccine in their whole entire life and they think they're too old to start now.
How do you argue with that?
I know. We're really, really pleased with that. And we're with Randy. We didn't have anybody, any of our drivers or any of our staff get sick, in our facility or on our vehicles. So we're very fortunate. I think we just were very diligent in what we needed to do early on. And as far as the masks go, our drivers, they're tired of them, to be for sure, but we're not getting a lot of pushback, but we're just getting a lot of questioning because, when your state says no mask mandates and then CDC says, oh, it's safe to be around people if you're vaccinated. And then we say, but not unless you're right, so that's kind of, it's a struggle, but people they've been pretty good about it in our area.
Yeah. And Julia, that's the same issue that Barb raised about marijuana.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at the last election cycle, the one thing Americans seem to agree on across many states and referenda was legalize or relaxing restrictions on the usage of marijuana. And so you get that going on, but then you get the feds that say zero tolerance and it's the same kind of issue that we're working on.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I've raised that with the driver situation. I think you and I have talked about this before too, is the rules for background checks are so stringent in who we can have behind the wheel. So how do we reincorporate this whole segment of the population that needs to be brought back into the community that could possibly be drivers to help us with the driver shortage, but we can't hire them because of the stringent regulations. Of them being incarcerated or whatever, but some of those they're not for violent crimes, they're for things that, especially if they're drug related, because we have such stringent drug and alcohol background. So I think there's some stuff that needs to be done on that end as well.
Yeah, the increasingly my conversations with members end up focusing on their fears about drivers and driver shortages. We're seeing them at systems. I see it reported in the media every day now. We've got urban systems that aren't making pullout because for a lack of drivers. Randy's number there, I could use 14 more. That pretty much is what we hear everywhere. And that's where we've emphasized this CDL thing would just kind of put that problem on steroids. Like It's already a major issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Others?
Scott, I'd say here in Springfield, Missouri, we have 65% vaccination rate among our drivers. We were able to very early on, and we're really pleased with that number in Southwest Missouri. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
We were very, very early on established a strong relationship here at the utility with our local health department. And when the guidelines came out from the state, we were bumped way down on the list. We worked with the local health department and got ourselves into basically tier 2, level 1. And and our drivers, we were fighting the community surge to that very first vaccination clinic, and took us 6 hours to get everybody signed up, but they were super excited to do it. So we've got as much as we think we're going to get. We had 9.8% positivity among our staff. The community positivity was 9.5, so we feel like we beat the odds here. And then our vaccination rate far surpasses the community and also the electric, gas, water, and telecommunication department. So we're pleased with that here.
No, that's really great to hear, Matt, and thanks for sharing. I mean, as is always the case, you have to kind of take the context of any of these data points, and you're looking at it as compared to the vaccination rates in the area. It says more than anything else. I've been telling members for the last 2 months, like, you don't want to be the first one mandating anything. Let other people do that and be the ones that get the litigation and all the costs and that go associated with that. And then we can all kind of learn from what emerges out of that as good kind of HR policy. But no doubt there is a change that this will have an influence on kind of how we go about that. And again, another thing that limits the driver pool. Yeah.
Hey, Scott, this is Kristen from Iowa DOT. Is CTAA or anybody thinking of doing, a decompression here as we wind down with the pandemic of what worked and what didn't from the federal and state levels? Because one thing that, I noted from my perspective anyway, is that, it just didn't work with the states all haphazardly having their own guidance or not. And the feds saying one thing, and, it's been a hot mess for a year. And still with this federal mask mandate, but all the states saying, nah, you don't need masks. So, and making us de facto police officers. So is there some sort of effort underway to kind of suss all that information out so we can do better next time, because there will be a next time?
Yeah, there is. I'm involved in these meetings, and Zoom. We've all Zoom meeting ourselves to utter fatigue over the last year and months. But in these meetings, I try to get Nuria at FTA and certainly Jim at AASHTO, Paul at APTA. We all kind of at the leadership level. I think what you're asking for is critical, because we have established certain connections with public health, as was mentioned here, that I think ought to be continued and will serve us well into the future. And L'Oreal and Taylor can certainly back me up. That's something that we on our staff have been looking at. Like, what did we change in the last 14 months that as we start to re-enter our old lives, we want to keep? That there have been improvements in our efficiency, in the way we've grown more paperless. A lot of things that we've as an association have said we got to keep doing that. That actually works better. And I think we're planning on doing some of that summative work at the expo, because we feel like November timeframe should be when, hopefully we'll continue the good numbers that we've seen and move in that direction. But I didn't ever like, and I know you and I were in agreement, the idea that the FTA would put out $70 billion and not have any guidance or guidance by Q&A. And I know the time restrictions made that was the only way they could hit their deadlines of getting the money out the door. But you and I, Kristen, we've been doing this long enough. We know that whenever the feds are beating us up about getting the money out the door, we know what comes next, which is, well, what did you spend it on and why?
Yep.
And so, I'm kind of listening and trying to figure out, how is FTA going to handle this from an oversight perspective, and what insights can I pick up on state management reviews and on triennials? How's that going to show up? So I have way more questions than answers, but I can just tell you that I'm as curious as you, and as I learn stuff, I'll certainly share it.
All right, thank you.
You know, Scott, one of the things that we were told early on is that we needed to make sure that when we had any of our staff completing functions that were pandemic related, whether it was cleaning their buses, cleaning the bathroom, cleaning the building, whatever, that we needed to continue tracking that information so it was available. Well, we've just recently been told, well, you know, never mind, we don't think we need that information and you can just continue doing it. That was a heck of a long time and a lot of work to try to track that information. Did anybody else have that same issue? No?
You know, but Barb, you raise a good point. Every time they ask, they being FTA or for data and data collection, I find myself in the position of saying, yes, that would be interesting to know, but what's the return on it? Because it's going to take time and resources to collect this information, to upload it into some website that they're going to create, and that's always a hassle and creates issues. And what's actually going to come out from it? You know what I mean? And that's what I find myself saying that to the FTA leadership all the time. ROI, ROI. If you want us to do this, what do we get out of it? And you guys checking boxes, I'm not so down with that. And my members don't want it because you guys are already overburdened with that stuff.
Hey, Scott, before we end, I have a commercial.
All right.
And since you're the keynote speaker for this event, you know, what can I say?
Yeah.
The three Midwest states, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, or not Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, will have our Midwest Transit Conference again this year. Nebraska decided not to come. St. Louis was too far to go, I guess. And it will be September 7th through 9th at the Marriott there in St. Louis. We will have both an in-person and a virtual option. And we have a website that you can go to if you're interested. It's mwtransitconference.org, mwtransitconference.org. Okay. And you can sign up and participate in our Midwest Transit Conference. So we're not sure if the FTA folks are going to get permission to travel by then, but we hope so.
Yeah, I've asked them. We've reopened at CTAA in a partial way. We've got phased return. I wanted to get that done for us early ahead of when the whole Fed opens, so that all of our staff and all the CTA staff's been vaccinated. So it's a pretty easy decision. But I do ask regularly, when are congressional offices going to reopen? When are the federal agencies going to reopen? And I kind of get and I'm thinking that's going to be in September. And if they're going to reopen, then I think they're going to have to open for travel. So your conference in September may make it.
Well, thank you very much for what you're doing. The Kansas Public Transit Association is 100% vaccinated, all one of us. And so,
congratulations, Tuck.
By the way, the EEOC not only said that you could mandate it, they also said that you can provide incentives.
Yes.
For people to get the vaccination, and they won't consider that to be a form of coercion. So I'm waiting for the $1 million prize to be offered here in Kansas.
So the free Budweiser is not enough for you, Tom?
Well, Scott, as you know, I'm the lobbyist for the wine and spirits wholesalers in Kansas, and I got a warehouse full of products. So some sort of Bud Light is not enough to induce me. It needs to be a single malt or some sort of superior Sinatra-like bourbon to get
I
my
had a
interest.
feeling you were going to say that, Tuck. L'Oreal, back to you. And thanks everyone for the discussion. And if you have questions that you wanted to ask but didn't feel that you wanted to do it publicly, shoot me an email, L'Oreal, Taylor, shoot us a message and we'll get right back to you.
Yes, and thank you all so much. And we hope to see you at one of our many signature events this year. Have a great day.